Zara Osei was laughing when her life fell apart. Not a small laugh either, the full kind, the kind that makes your stomach hurt and your eyes water, the kind you can't fake. Her coworker Beezy had just done an impression of their boss that was so accurate it was almost dangerous, and Zara had completely lost it, leaning back in her chair in the break room, feeling, for the first time in weeks, like herself. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it out of habit. Marcus. She smiled without thinking, because that's what 8 months did to you. It rewired your instincts, made someone's name on a screen feel like a small gift. She swiped it open, still smiling, still riding the tail end of Beezy's joke. She read it once. Then she read it again. I've been doing a lot of thinking and I don't think this is working anymore. I think we should end things.
I'm sorry, Zara.
I hope you understand. The laugh died somewhere in her chest. Not dramatically, not with a gasp or a scene. It just stopped, like a song that gets cut off before the final note. Beezy was still talking. Zara nodded like she was listening. She put her phone face down on the table, picked up her coffee, and took a sip even though it had gone cold 20 minutes ago. She sat with it, the weight of what she'd just read, and let the break room noise wash over her. The hum of the refrigerator. Beezy's voice. Someone's microwave beeping down the hall. Tomorrow was her birthday. She was turning 28 tomorrow, and Marcus, the man who had met her parents, who had a drawer at her apartment, who had told her just 3 weeks ago that he saw a future with her, had ended their relationship via text message. Not a phone call, not a conversation, a text, 11 lines, sent at 2:47 in the afternoon like it was a reminder to buy groceries. She drove home in silence. Not the peaceful kind, the loud kind, the kind where your brain won't stop talking even though your mouth refuses to open. She replayed everything. The last time she saw him, last weekend. He had seemed distracted, yes, but she had chalked it up to work stress. He'd kissed her at the door when she left. Had it already been decided then? Had he kissed her goodbye knowing it was goodbye? She got home, sat on her couch, and stared at her wall. Her phone buzzed again. Her mother. She let it ring. It buzzed again. Her friend Imani. She let that one ring too. Then a text from Imani. Girl, I know you're not ignoring me. Call me back or I'm coming over. Zara called her back. He texted me, she said the moment Imani picked up. No hello. No preamble. There was a pause. Who texted you? Marcus. To break up with me. He texted me. Imani. The silence on the other end was the particular kind that meant Imani was choosing her words very carefully, so she didn't say something that would get her in trouble later. Then, I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already putting my shoes on. Welcome back to Afro-Korean Storyhouse channel. Before we continue with this story, tell us in the comment section where you are watching from. And if you are new here, hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget turn on your notification to get notified whenever we drop a video. Imani arrived 40 minutes later with chin chin, a bottle of palm wine, and the specific energy of a woman ready to declare war on someone else's behalf. She sat next to Zara on the couch, poured 2 glasses, handed one over and said, "Tell me everything." So Zara did. She talked for almost an hour. About Marcus. About the last few weeks. About the text message and its 11 lines and the fact that he hadn't even called. About how she kept checking her phone expecting a follow-up, an explanation, something, and how nothing came. When she was done, Imani was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what I think? Don't. I think he did you a favor." Imani. No. Listen. A man who ends a relationship by text message the night before your birthday is not a man you want to spend another 8 months on. He's not even a man you want to spend another 8 minutes on. She refilled Zara's glass. He saved you time. Zara stared at her drink. It still hurts. Of course it does. It's supposed to. You loved him. Imani's voice softened. But you're going to be okay. You know that, right? Zara didn't answer because she wasn't sure yet. But she nodded anyway. She did not sleep well that night. She lay in the dark with the drawer on Marcus's side of the room. Her side now, all of it hers again. And she thought about the future she had quietly been building in her head. the one that had him in it. She hadn't even realized how much space she had given him in her imagination until she had to start removing him from it. Her birthday arrived the way birthdays do when you're not in the mood, indifferently on schedule without asking if you were ready. Her mother called at 7 in the morning, singing the birthday song in Chui, slightly off-key and completely full of love, and Zara cried a little into her pillow after the call ended. Not from sadness exactly. From gratitude, maybe. From the strange relief of knowing that some love was unconditional and showed up on time. By noon, she had received so many voice notes, texts, and calls that her phone battery was at 30%. Everyone who loved her was loud about it today, and she appreciated it even as she moved through the hours feeling slightly underwater. Amani texted at 4 p.m., "Please tell me you're not spending your birthday on that couch." Zara looked down at herself. She was, in fact, on the couch. She had been there since noon. "I'm not on the couch," she typed back. "Liar. Get dressed. Kofi is having a rooftop thing tonight. We're going." "I'm not in a rooftop thing kind of mood." "Good thing your mood isn't invited. Just you. Be ready by 8. Zara put her phone down. She looked at the ceiling. She thought about Marcus's text, about the drawer that was now fully hers, about the plan she'd had for this birthday that no longer existed. She thought about what Amani had said. He did you a favor, and she wasn't ready to agree with that yet, but she was willing to at least get off the couch. She got up. She showered. She stood in front of her wardrobe for 10 minutes and then pulled out the rust-colored dress she'd bought 2 months ago and never worn. She did her hair. She put on the gold earrings her aunt had sent from Accra. She looked at herself in the mirror for a long moment. She didn't look like a woman whose boyfriend had texted her a breakup the night before her birthday. She looked like herself. That would have to be enough. Amani arrived at 8:15, took one look at her and said, "See? This is why he doesn't deserve you." The rooftop party was at a building in Victoria Island that Zara had never been to before. It was Kofi's friend's place. Some industry gathering that had quietly become a social event, the kind Lagos did effortlessly, where music and money and laughter all occupied the same air. The skyline glittered behind it all. The kind of night that made you glad to be alive in the city even when your personal life was in pieces. Zara got herself a drink and planted herself near the edge of the rooftop where the view was best and the crowd was thinnest. She was not hiding. She was simply choosing her position carefully. She was watching the city lights when she heard Amani shriek her name from somewhere behind her, then felt the collision. An elbow to her arm, sharp and sudden, and then everything happened at once. Her drink tilted. She grabbed for it. Too late. The champagne arced through the air in a way that felt almost slow motion and landed squarely on the white shirt of the man standing just to her left. The man who had, until approximately 2 seconds ago, been having a quiet conversation with someone and minding his own business entirely. He turned. Zara opened her mouth. "I am so. It's fine," he said, quietly, calmly, like a man who had decided before the sentence even started that it was going to be fine. She stared at him. He was looking down at his shirt with the mild expression of someone who had spilled something on themselves, not someone who had just been champagne-bombed by a stranger at a party. He looked up and met her eyes, and something in his expression shifted, not to anger, not to irritation, just to a kind of calm attention, like she now had it completely. "I'm really sorry," Zara managed. Can I get napkins or?" "It's fine," he said again. And then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "Happy birthday." She blinked. "How did you know it was my birthday?" He nodded toward her drink, which Amani, somewhere behind her, had apparently replaced with a glass that had a small birthday ribbon on the stem. Zara looked at the glass, then back at him. He extended his hand. "Seo Jae-won." She took it. "Zara Osei. And I'm really, genuinely sorry about your shirt." "Don't be," he said. "Best thing that's happened all evening." Zara wasn't sure what she had expected him to say after that, but it wasn't that. She laughed, short and surprised, and he smiled again, the kind that didn't announce itself loudly but settled on his face like it belonged there. "That's a very generous way to look at a ruined shirt," she said. "It wasn't my favorite shirt," he said. Now I have a reason to throw it out. She laughed again, and this time it felt easier. More natural. Like the first 2 times her body had forgotten it was supposed to be grieving tonight and had simply responded to something genuinely funny. She looked at him properly for the first time. He was tall, lean, dressed simply in that shirt and dark trousers, no flashy watch, no loud accessories. He had the kind of stillness about him that was rare at parties like this, where everyone seemed to be performing slightly louder versions of themselves. "Are you Korean?" she asked, and immediately wondered if that was rude. He didn't seem to think so. "Yes, from Seoul." "You?" "Ghanaian. From Lagos now. Been here 6 years." He nodded slowly, like he was filing that away somewhere careful. "You like it?" "Lagos. I love it," she said without hesitation. "It's chaotic and exhausting and it never lets you rest. But it's alive in a way that gets into your blood. You know what I mean?" He considered this. "I think so. Seoul is like that too. You either belong to it or you don't." "Exactly." She tilted her head. "So which is it for you and Lagos? Do you belong to it?" "I'm still deciding," he said. "I've only been here 3 weeks." 3 weeks and you're already at rooftop parties in Victoria Island." The corner of his mouth lifted. "A colleague invited me. I almost didn't come." "What made you come?" He looked at her for a moment. "I haven't decided that yet either." There was something in the way he said it, unhurried, direct, without any of the performative charm she had grown used to from men at parties like this, that made her want to keep talking to him. Not because he was trying to impress her. Precisely because he wasn't. Imani materialized at her elbow approximately 4 minutes later with the energy of someone who had been watching from a distance and could no longer contain herself. She looked at Jae-won, then at Zara, then back at Jae-won with an expression that said everything she was too polite to say out loud right now but would absolutely say later in the car. "Imani," Zara said carefully. "This is Jae-won. I spilled champagne on him." "She did," Jae-won confirmed pleasantly. "And he was very gracious about it," Zara added. Imani smiled the smile of a woman who was storing all of this information for future use. "Lovely to meet you, Jae-won. Don't mind me. I was just checking that my friend was still alive." She looked at Zara. "She's alive. Carry on." And she disappeared back into the crowd with suspicious speed. Zara turned back to Jae-won. "I apologize for her. She seems like a good friend. She's the best. Also completely incapable of subtlety." He smiled. "Those are usually the same person." They talked for another hour. She found out he was in Lagos for work, agricultural development, he said. Something about sustainable farming infrastructure and supply chain consulting for West African markets. She told him she worked in brand communications, that she had studied in Accra and moved to Lagos for a job that had turned into a career that had turned into a life. He listened the way few people listened, not waiting for his turn to speak but actually receiving what she said, turning it over, responding to the specific thing she had said rather than a general version of it. At some point they moved from the edge of the rooftop to a quieter corner near the plants where the music was softer and they didn't have to raise their voices. At some point someone handed them both new drinks. At some point Zara realized she had stopped thinking about Marcus entirely, and the realization arrived not as guilt but as relief. Clean and quiet, like opening a window in a stuffy room. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "What do you actually think about when you think about farming? Like what draws you to it? Because most people I meet in your field talk about it in very corporate terms. ROI and logistics and market access. But you talk about it differently." He was quiet for a moment, and she got the sense he was actually thinking about the answer rather than reaching for the one that sounded best. "My grandfather was a farmer," he said finally. "In the south of Korea. He farmed rice. His father farmed rice before him. When I was young, I used to go there in the summers and watch him work, and I remember thinking, this man understands something about the world that most people never will. About patience. About what it means to put something in the ground and trust it." He paused. "I went into agricultural business because I wanted to understand that at scale. To take what he knew and figure out how to make it matter in a larger way." Zara looked at him. "That's a beautiful answer. It's an honest one," he said simply. "Those are usually the same thing too," she said. He looked at her when she said that. A beat longer than conversation required. She held it without looking away, and something passed between them that neither of them named, the way certain things between two people don't need naming to be real. They exchanged numbers before the party ended. His suggestion, offered without fanfare. I don't know many people in Lagos yet. It would be good to know someone who loves it the way you do. She had saved his contact and handed his phone back, and he had looked at what she'd typed and smiled at her name on his screen. On the drive home, Imani lasted approximately 90 seconds before she exploded. Okay, who is he? Where is he from? And why did he look at you like that? Like what? Zara. I have eyes. The man looked at you like you were the most interesting thing on that rooftop. He was just being friendly. Men at parties are not just being friendly. Not like that. Imani turned in her seat. He's Korean? Yes. What does he do? Agricultural consulting. Something about sustainable farming infrastructure. Imani stared at her. On this rooftop. Insay. At Kofi's industry event. Zara frowned slightly. Yes. Why? Zara. That party wasn't just a random gathering. Kofi's friend, the one whose building it was, that's Emeka Adeyinka. You know who Emeka Adeyinka is, right? I know the name. He's one of the biggest real estate developers in Lagos. That rooftop belongs to one of his commercial properties. The people at that party were not just industry people, they were the industry. Imani looked at her steadily. So the question is, what is your Korean agricultural consultant doing there? Zara thought about this. He said a colleague invited him. A colleague with access to Emeka Adeyinka's private events. I didn't ask. Of course you didn't ask. You were too busy having chemistry. Imani faced forward again, but Zara could see her smiling. I'm just saying. Find out who he actually is before you decide he's just some farming consultant from Seoul. Zara looked out the window at the Lagos night rolling past. The city was still loud at this hour, still bright, still entirely itself. She thought about what Jae-won had said. Seoul is like that too. You either belong to it or you don't. She thought about his grandfather and the rice fields and the way he talked about patience and trust and putting something in the ground. She thought about Marcus's text. 11 lines. 2:47 in the afternoon. She thought about the way Jae-won had said best thing that's happened all evening. Quietly, without performance, like a man who simply meant what he said. She got home, took off the rust-colored dress, hung it carefully, and sat on the edge of her bed. She picked up her phone. Jae-won's contact was there, exactly where she'd left it. She stared at it for a moment, not with intention, just with the particular awareness of knowing something had shifted tonight without being able to say exactly what. She put her phone down, turned off the light, and for the first time in 2 days, she slept deeply. 3 days passed before he texted. Not because she was counting. She wasn't counting. She just happened to know it was 3 days. I found a place that makes jollof rice that tastes almost right. Almost. I think you'd have opinions about it. She smiled at her phone screen before she could stop herself. Almost right is an insult to jollof rice. She typed back. Where is this place? Lekki. Friday if you're free. She looked at the message. Looked at the ceiling. Looked back at the message. I'm free, she wrote. Friday arrived with the particular energy of a Lagos evening that had decided to be beautiful, the kind where the heat softens just enough after 6, where the sky does something extraordinary in the hour before dark, where the city feels less like a place you survive and more like a place you chose. Zara told herself it wasn't a date. It was two people getting jollof rice. That was all. She changed her outfit twice. The restaurant Jae-won had found was a small Ghanaian-Nigerian fusion spot tucked into a quiet street in Lekki that she had somehow never discovered in 6 years of living in the city. Red walls, low lighting, Afrobeats playing at a volume that allowed actual conversation. He was already there when she arrived, seated at a corner table, and he stood when he saw her. Not in a stiff formal way, just naturally, like it was the obvious thing to do. You found it, he said. I've lived here 6 years and I've never been to this street, she said, sitting down. How did you find it? I walk a lot when I'm in a new city. I find things. You walk around Lagos alone? Is that dangerous? It's not dangerous, it's just… She paused. Most people don't do that. Most people who come here for work stay in their car between the office and the hotel. I know, he said. That's why they don't find anything. She looked at him across the table. There it was again, that quality she had noticed at the party. The stillness. The sense that he was completely present, not distracted by his phone or the room or whatever came next, just here in this corner in this conversation. The jollof rice arrived and Zara tasted it and made a face that she couldn't control. See, he said, watching her. Almost right. This is not almost right. This is a completely different conversation from jollof rice. What's wrong with it? The tomato base hasn't cooked down long enough. The seasoning is timid. And I don't know what they did to the party rice smokiness, but they didn't do enough of it. She put her fork down with the energy of someone delivering a verdict. This is rice that is trying to be jollof. Jollof is not something you try to be. You either are or you aren't. He was laughing now. Not loudly, but fully, his whole face involved. You said you'd have opinions. I said I'd have opinions. Not that I'd be diplomatic about them. I prefer this, he said. Diplomatic opinions are useless. They ate and talked and the evening moved the way good evenings do, without you noticing the time until you suddenly realize the restaurant has emptied around you and the staff are doing that thing where they wipe tables nearby to politely communicate that you should probably wrap up. She found out more about him over that dinner. He was 32. He had studied agricultural economics in Seoul and then in the Netherlands. He had 2 younger sisters who called him constantly and about whom he spoke with an unguarded warmth that she found quietly devastating. He had been working across West Africa for the past 4 years: Ghana, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, and now Nigeria. He liked to cook. He could not, by his own admission, dance. Not at all? She asked. Not in any way that should be witnessed by others. That's very self-aware. I've been told. Koreans have amazing choreography, though. As a culture. That's professional training, he said seriously. I don't have professional training. I have 2 left feet and misplaced confidence. She burst out laughing and he watched her laugh with that expression she was beginning to recognize. The calm, attentive one that meant she had his complete focus. What about you? He asked when she'd recovered. I can dance, she said simply. It's a Ghanaian requirement. You come out of the womb and someone puts music on. Show me sometime, he said. And the way he said it was so matter-of-fact that it took her a second to register that he had just casually implied a sometime. A future, a next time, more than this evening. She looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them made it into a bigger moment than it was. But it sat there between them, solid and warm. They walked out together into the Lagos night and stood on the pavement while her Uber approached and he waited. She noticed that he waited, and when the car pulled up he said, Next time I'll find a place that gets the jollof right. That's a high bar, she said. I know, he said. I like high bars. She got in the car. She did not look back, but she was smiling before the door had fully closed. They fell into something after that. Not a relationship, not yet, not named, but a rhythm. Texts that started about food and became about everything. A Sunday afternoon where he called to ask her opinion on a neighborhood he was considering moving to, and they ended up on the phone for 2 hours covering Lagos real estate, Ghanaian funeral traditions, the agricultural policies of 3 different West African governments, and whether or not pineapple belonged on anything. She said no. He said the question was more nuanced than that. She told him it was not. He came to her side of the city one evening and she made him jollof rice. Real jollof rice, the kind her mother had taught her, cooked low and slow with the lid on tight to trap the smoke. She watched him take the first bite and she watched his expression change. This, he said quietly, is completely different. I know. How long did this take? 2 hours. He looked at her. You cooked for 2 hours for me. She shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. I cook for 2 hours when I cook jollof. That's just the time it takes. He looked back at his plate. In Korea, cooking for someone for 2 hours means something. In Ghana too, she said, before she could think better of it. The kitchen was very quiet for a moment. Then he said, It means something to me here too, Zara. And he said her name the way he always said it, careful and whole, like it deserved the full space of a breath. She busied herself at the counter so he wouldn't see her face, but her heart was doing something loud and inconvenient behind her ribs. They were not dating. They were circling something, and the circling was its own kind of sweetness. It was Imani who first said it plainly, the way Imani always said things plainly. They were at brunch 3 weeks after the rooftop party, and Zara was telling a story about Jae-won and the pineapple debate, and she was laughing while she told it. The kind of laughing that happens when you've replayed something fondly too many times. And Imani put her fork down and said, "You like him? He's a good person to talk to. Zara, we're friends. Friends don't cook 2-hour jollof rice for each other. I cook for my friends all the time. Name one friend you cooked 2-hour jollof for in the last year." Silence. "That's what I thought," Imani said, picking her fork back up. "You like him, and from everything you've described, he likes you. So what are you waiting for?" Zara turned her glass on the table slowly. "I just got out of something." "You got out of something that wasn't right for you. That's different from getting out of something good." Imani looked at her steadily. "Marcus texted you a breakup the night before your birthday. He was never going to love you the way you deserved. Jae-won waited for you outside a restaurant to make sure you got into your car safely. These are not the same category of man." Zara was quiet. "I'm not rushing you," Imani said more gently. "I'm just saying, don't let what Marcus did make you suspicious of something that is actually good. That's the real damage these things do. Not the heartbreak, the suspicion." Zara thought about that for the rest of the day. She was still thinking about it that evening when her phone rang, and it was Jae-won, calling, not texting, to tell her he had found a new place and that he was fairly confident this time, and his voice was warm and unhurried and completely certain of her, and she sat curled in the corner of her couch listening to him talk and thought, Imani is right. She was falling. She had been falling for weeks. She had simply been calling it something else to give herself time. She wasn't sure she needed more time. What she didn't know, what she had no way of knowing yet, was that Jae-won had been keeping something from her. Not maliciously, not with any intention to deceive, but something significant, something that was about to surface whether he was ready for it or not. It started with a phone call he took in her presence, stepping away briefly, speaking in rapid Korean, and returning to the table with an expression she hadn't seen on him before. Tight, controlled, like a man managing something large in a very small space. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said, and smiled, but it wasn't the same smile. Zara noticed the shift but said nothing. That was the thing about paying attention to someone. You started to learn the difference between their moods the way you learn the difference between types of silence. Jae-won's usual quiet was comfortable, settled, like a room with good light. This new quiet was different, contained, like a room where someone had just closed a door. She gave him space. She was good at that, reading when to push and when to simply stay present without demanding entry. But over the next few days, the tightness didn't leave him entirely, and she found herself wondering about the phone call, about what had arrived in that rapid Korean conversation that had rearranged something behind his eyes. The answer came from a direction she didn't expect. She was in a client meeting on a Tuesday afternoon when her client, a mid-sized real estate firm, pulled up a news article as context for a campaign they were discussing. The headline was about a major agricultural land acquisition in Ogun State, a deal reportedly worth several billion naira, involving a Korean conglomerate expanding its West African operations. Her client was talking about the ripple effect on property values in the corridor. Zara was half listening, making notes, when the name in the article caught her eye. Seo Agri Group. She read it again. Seo Agri Group, founded by Seo Byung-chon, headquartered in Seoul with subsidiary operations across 6 countries. The article mentioned the Lagos-based project lead managing the Nigeria expansion, Seo Jae-won. She sat very still for the rest of that meeting. Afterwards, she sat in her car in the car park and read the full article on her phone. Then she searched his name. Then she searched the company. What came back was not the profile of an agricultural consultant. What came back was the profile of a man whose family had built one of South Korea's largest privately held agricultural conglomerates over 3 generations, whose grandfather, She stopped when she read that whose grandfather had farmed rice in the south of Korea, and whose father had turned that inheritance into an empire that now operated across Asia, Europe, and increasingly Africa. The building they were headquartered in Seoul. The land they owned. The subsidiary companies. The net worth estimates she found in a business journal that made her set her phone down on the passenger seat and look out the windscreen at nothing for a full minute. Half the city, one article said, referring to a satellite town outside Seoul where the Seo family's agricultural and real estate holdings were so extensive it had become a running cultural reference. Half the city. She had thought that was a figure of speech when Imani had said something similar weeks ago. It was not a figure of speech. Jae-won had told her he worked in agricultural development. He had told her about his grandfather and the rice fields. He had told her he was in Lagos for work. All of that was true. None of it was the whole picture. She drove home. She sat with it. She was not angry, not yet, but she was unsettled in a way that had a specific shape, the shape of someone who had been building trust carefully, deliberately, after having that trust broken before, and who had just discovered a significant gap between what they knew and what was real. She texted him that evening. Simple. Neutral. Can we talk tomorrow? He responded within minutes. Of course. Is everything okay? She stared at the message. Then she typed, I read something today. About Seo Agri Group. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, I'll come to you. Tonight, if that's okay. She said yes. He arrived an hour later and she opened the door and looked at him. This man she had spilled champagne on, this man who had waited on pavements and cooked with her and called instead of texted and said her name like it deserved a full breath. And she felt the complicated thing that happens when you care about someone and are also hurt by them simultaneously. She let him in. They sat in her living room. She didn't offer drinks. He didn't ask for any. How much of what you told me was true? She asked. Directly. Calmly. All of it, he said. Everything I told you was true. And how much did you leave out? He was quiet for a moment. A significant amount. Tell me. So he did. He told her about his family's company, about the scale of it, about the Nigeria expansion and what it represented and what his role actually was. Not consultant but director, one of the primary decision-makers on the continent. He told her about the phone call she had witnessed, which had been his father calling about a board decision that affected the Lagos operation directly. He told her that the colleague who had invited him to the rooftop party was actually a partner on the acquisition deal, and that the party had been less social gathering and more quiet industry networking. He told her all of it steadily, without deflection, meeting her eyes throughout. When he finished, she said, Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? He took a breath. Because when you met me, you didn't know who my family was. You talked to me like a person. You argued about jollof rice with me. You told me what you actually thought without calculating anything first. He paused. I have had very few experiences like that, Zara. Most people, when they know, they change. The way they talk to me changes. What they want from me changes. He looked at her. I wasn't ready to lose that yet. I kept waiting for the right moment and then the right moment kept moving. She looked at him for a long time. That's not a good enough reason to let me build something on an incomplete foundation. I know, he said quietly. You're right. I just came out of a relationship where someone decided what I needed to know and what I didn't. Where someone made choices about our relationship without including me. Her voice was steady but the weight in it was real. I can't do that again, Jae-won. I won't. I know, he said again. And then, I'm sorry, Zara. Not as an explanation. Just as what it is.
I'm sorry.
The room was quiet. Outside Lagos was doing what Lagos always did. Loud and alive and completely indifferent to the small human drama happening in this apartment. She looked at her hands. She thought about what Imani had said. Don't let what Marcus did make you suspicious of something that is actually good. She thought about the difference between a man who texted a breakup at 2:47 in the afternoon and a man who drove across the city at night to sit in her living room and tell her the truth when she asked for it. I need you to understand something, she said finally. I don't care about your family's money. I don't care about the company or what it owns or what the articles say. That is not what this is about for me and it never will be. I know that, he said. That's exactly why. Let me finish. She looked up at him. What I care about is that you trust me enough to be whole with me. Not edited. Not managed. Whole. Because I have been giving you whole, Jae-won. Every conversation. Every story. Every opinion about jollof rice and pineapple and everything else. The corner of her mouth moved slightly despite herself. I need the same thing back. That's all I'm asking for. He looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen on him before. Not the controlled, managed stillness, but something underneath it. Open. A little undone. Like a man who had been careful for so long that being seen clearly felt like both relief and exposure at once. That's all I want to give you, he said. If you'll let me. She held his gaze. The quiet between them was different now. Not tense, not closed, but the kind that comes after something true has been said and both people are simply sitting with the weight and the lightness of it together. Don't lie to me again, she said. Not by omission. Not by timing. Not by waiting for the right moment that keeps moving. I won't, he said. Then we're okay, she said. We're not all the way okay yet, but we're okay. He nodded, and she saw it, the thing that moved across his face when she said that. Not relief exactly. Something quieter and more lasting than relief. Like a man who had put something in the ground and was watching, for the first time, the first sign of green. They sat together a little longer that night, not filling the space with noise, just letting the honesty they had arrived at breathe. At some point she made tea. At some point he laughed at something she said and she thought, there it is, there's the version of him I'm not giving back. Lagos glittered outside her window, the city that never asked if you were ready, the city that simply kept going and trusted you to keep up. Zara looked at Jae-won across her small kitchen and thought about patience. About what it means to put something in the ground and trust it. About how some things bloom right on time and others bloom right on cue, just when you've stopped waiting. She thought she finally understood what he had meant about his grandfather. She thought she was beginning to understand a great many things. If you enjoyed the story, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us whose side you were on when Zara found out the truth, and don't forget to subscribe to Afro-Korean Storyhouse channel so you never miss a story. We post every week and trust us, you don't want to miss what's coming next.